So after the returning was to Anima and Abebe, the next transaction was 25th, which was Bonsu and Mensa returned goods worth 1,400 respectively. So who is Bonsu and Mensa? These are also customers who we sold goods to, right? So this return inwards. So return inwards, this should be in the return inwards day. So let's go to the return inwards day book and see what's going to happen there. So in the return inwards day book, you put the date, that's 25th. The first customer was Bonsu. How much did Bonsu return? 1,000 Ghana cedis. However, we are lessing a discount here. Why is it so? Because if you check the sales we made to Bonsu, there was a discount of what? 15%, right? So you see that on the fifth, credit sales to Bonsu, okay, 15% discount allowed. So that's why in the returns, we are also lessening that discount. So please take note of that. Don't ever miss that point. And then for the second person, which is Mensa, if we check the sales we made to Mensa, okay, which was on the 15th, there was no discount. That is why for the return invoice from Mensa, you see there is no adjustment for the trade discount. Okay. The next transaction was a credit sales to Banfo on the 28th. So that will go into the sales day book. So 28th January 2018, sales to Banfo, 6,000. There was no further details to work out or calculate anything under the detail column. And then we have credit purchases from Frimpong and Abebe on the 30th. This will go to the, so on the 30th, Frimpong 3,000, Abebe 2,200. So professors, that is how you would record these transactions in your.
Correspond. Close the door.
Okay. Okay, so after you are done with the day books, the next thing is for you to now post to the ledgers. So professors, let's now focus on each of the day books and see how we can post or do the postings to the ledgers. Okay. But before the postings, you always need to get your total, sum up the totals. So in your sales day book, okay, you add up all the figures from the first date, which is 3rd January, to the last date, which is 28th. You sum those total sales, right? So you say I've summed them here, 21,350. You need to give a narration to this total. And of course, it represents total credit sales. Now, this total credit sales, we are going to post it to the ledgers. Okay, specifically the general ledger into the sales account. So you always need to make this narration for the total credit sales. Okay, so as you see here, total credit sales, you can use transferred or posted. Okay, I think posted is a bit shorter. Posted to sales account in the general ledger. Okay, then you see the date you use for that will be the closing date of the period. So the period was January 2018, the closing date is 31st. You do same for the purchase day book. You sum up the totals, right? And you indicate this is total credit purchases posted. If you use transferred, it's the same thing. Posted to this time, the purchases account in the general ledger. Again, using the closing date. You do same totals for your return inwards, return outwards day books. So for the return outwards, we had a total of 630. Again, you give the details for the particulars, which is total return outwards posted to return outwards account in the general ledger. You see that they rhyme, right? Total credit sales posted to sales account in the general ledger. All of them have in the general ledger in the general ledger. Okay, good. And then the last one, returning, was you do the same for the totals as you see here. Total return. I think this should be total return inwards. Okay. Transfer to return inwards account to in the general ledger. So that will complete your day books. Now what is left is to do the postings. Professors, the postings is not any magical thing. But before that, let me pause. Maybe there are questions. Questions for me? Questions? Okay, Josephine.
Sir, please, so when you give this work to us, are we going to like draw all the their books in the book?
Exactly, you'd have to do it. Yes, you'd have to do it. It might sound that this is quite, but you see, if you know, you know. You can do this within 10-15 minutes, trust me. Okay, and WIAC will not stress you that much. The number of or the quantum of transactions will be one that you can handle, right? So the first thing is you read through the question so that you can tell which of the day books you have to open, right? So you open your day books. So when you read a transaction, it has to go to the sales, you take it there. If it has to go to the purchase day book, you take it there in that order. But yes, you would have to draw the format for the day books in your answer booklet or in your exercise book or whatever you are using to answer. Okay, Augustine says, please, I can't hear you well. Please repeat the last part. Is it about the question Josephine asked? If it is, then I'm saying if you are given the question, yes, you have to draw the 4 day books. But if you check the past question for WASI, okay, sometimes they only ask you to prepare the sales day book and maybe the returning was and the purchase day book. They don't really stress you that much, okay? So it's something you can handle. Okay, any other questions? Abubakar, Akoli, Austin, Oswell, Josephine, Nadon, Portia, Eugenia, and Zoe. In fact, Zoe, I'm happy to have you back here. At the appropriate time, we'll give you a standing ovation. Okay, it's good to hear from you. Any questions? Further questions, Professor? Okay, so okay, let's look at the postings. So before we look at the postings, let me do this summaries here for you to conceptualize the postings. So professors, you have prepared 4 day books, right? Now, if you look at these 4 day books, the 2 of them work with the same people, right? So the sales day book and the return inwards day book, they work together. Why? Because they are all recording information about debtors or your customers. So the information in these 2-day books would be transferred to the sales ledger. Why the sales ledger? Because we all agreed, or we established the point that the sales ledger keeps record of the account of debtors, right? And your debtors come about as a result of credit sales. And it's your debtors who can also return the goods back to you. So all the entries in the sales day book and purchases day book, the returning was day book will go to the sales ledger because they are all bordering about debtors. Okay. After that, if you go to the purchases day book, it works with the return outwards. But return outwards is the same as the purchases return. That would bother about the creditors. Okay. And professors, which ledger keeps account of creditors? I think we mentioned it the last time. Which ledger keeps account of creditors, professors?
This is the purchases ledger.
Very much. The purchases ledger. The purchases ledger, right? So all the entries in the purchases day book and return outwards will go to the purchase ledger. Okay. Then when you are done, as we saw the totals, all the totals in these 4-day books, that's in total credit sales, total return was, total credit purchases, total return outwards, all the totals will go to the general ledger. Okay, so the totals would go to the general ledger. So your total credit sales will go to the general ledger, in which account? Your sales account. Okay, and your total credit purchases will also go to the purchase account in the general ledger, right? So that is the framework of the postings. Now that you appreciate this framework, we can look at the question that we just solved and see how the postings were done. Okay, great. Okay, so let me show this the postings so that we can. So you can start doing the posting by looking at the first day book you prepared. So in this case, we prepared the sales day book, right? So the first customer or debtor here is Mercy. So it means that this should go into the sales ledger. So you see, you just write your title, sales ledger, and then you open the account for Mercy. Okay. Now, after opening the account for Mercy, professors, you know the debit and credit. If you sell goods to Mercy, you are going to debit Mercy's account, right? So look at it. In Mercy's account, we put the date 3rd January 2018. The narration will be sales. How much did we sell to Mercy? You pick the net amount. Okay. Okay, so the next one is for Bonsu, right? So again, you prepare you open the account for Bonsu. We are still in the sales ledger, right? So for Bonsu, there was a total sale of 4,250. So we'll debit again Bonsu's account. Let me go down a bit so you can see. So you open Bonsu's account in the sales ledger. and then you debit Bonsu. The date was 5th January. So if you remember, when we're doing the double entry, we'll go straight away with debit, okay, the data credit sales without doing the day books, right? So we are just formalizing that you need the day books before you do the postings. Okay, great. The next person is Banfo, which happens on the same date. So again, you open Banfo's account, right? You open Banfo's account and you put in the sales. That was 2,550. January, you do that. Okay. The next person is Mensa. So you open Mensa's account and you debit Mensa 4,500 for 15th. Then again, you have Banfo. You already have Banfo's account. So you go back to Banfo's account and put in the debit. Okay. So you see that we have done all the postings for the sales day book. Let's check, except the totals. So like I'm saying, the totals will go to which ledger? The general ledger. So you find a page in your book and write the heading general ledger. Okay. You see general ledger. And in the general ledger, we'll open the sales account to record the total credit sales. So as you see it here, what do you do to your sales account? You credit it, because when you sell goods, you credit your sales account. So you use the date, which is 31st January 2018. The narration will be what? Debtors, because you sell on credit to your debtors, and you put your totals. Okay, good. So when you are done with your purchase day, the sales day book, you go to your purchases day book. In this case, all the individual suppliers would have to be in the purchases ledger. So again, you just write the title purchases ledger and open the T account for each of the suppliers. So you see it here, purchases ledger, and in that ledger you would find the T account for Frimpong, Anima, and Abeve, right? When you purchase, what do? You credit the supplier. So for Frimpong, which was the first transaction, 2nd January, you see we are crediting Frimpong's account in the purchases ledger with the 3,600 net amount. Okay. The second person was Anima, so we open Anima's account, again credit Anima 2,700 for that purchases. Okay. The next transaction was to Agbeve, or from Agbeve, purchase from Agbeve. So we need to open Agbeve's account. In Agbeve's account, you see that transaction being credited to Agbeve's account. The next was on the 30th, that was purchases from Frimpong. So we already have Frimpong's account. So you go back to Frimpong and again credit the purchases to Frimpong's account 3,000. And the last one was to Agbeve. So you go to Agbeve's account and put in the purchases of 2,200. Then the next thing will be the totals for the purchases. So again, the totals will go to where? The general ledger. So you already have your general ledger. You open the purchases account. You open the purchases account under the general ledger. Okay, as you did for the sales account. So you see it here, purchase account. When we purchase, we debit purchase account, right? So you debit purchase account with the totals. So we have finished with the first two books. We go to the last two, that's return outwards and return inwards. Picking the return outwards, even when you are confused, the name should guide you to the account, right? But you know the return outwards would affect your creditors, so that will be in the purchases ledger. So you go to your purchase ledger and you find Anima in there, and Abeves account already there. Return outwards, what do you do to the supplier's account? You debit them. So for Anima 20th January 2018, you debit Anima with the net amount of 180 return outwards. Okay, and for Agbebe 2, that will be 450 debit of return outwards. And I think professors are following and can see the debit being done. Again, the totals would have to go to the general ledger in the return outwards account. So if we go to the general ledger, you see the return outwards account being opened. Return outwards account being opened. Okay, and I think you can see the totals. What do we do to return outwards? We credit return outwards. So the totals will be credited to return outwards account. Okay, with the closing date, and the narration will be credited, right? Because you return the goods back to your creditors. And that was sum up for the return outwards. And finally, on the return inwards, this would affect our debtors, and our debtors are in the sales ledger. So we go to the sales ledger. So in the sales ledger, we have our debtors there. For Mercy, there was no returning was. The first person was Bonsu. So you see Bonsu. Returning was, we credit the customer. So that's why you are seeing the credit of the returning was to Bonsu at the credit side of Bonsu's account. Okay. Then the next person was Mensa. So we locate Mensa's account in the sales ledger. Okay. And we credit the return inwards of 400. And finally, the totals will go into the general ledger. We put it in the return inwards account. And we are going to debit that to return inwards. Because if the return inwards, you debit return inwards. So professors, after that, you can go ahead to balance off these accounts and even extract a trial balance. So that's why you are seeing the carry down brought downs here. But my main focus is for you to know how to do the postings. And I want to believe I've been able to do that well for my professors. If there are questions, please let me have them now. It looks plenty, eh? You know, it's not plenty. The more you solve, the more you get, very conversant with the process. Okay. But I think, yes, Portia, before your question, I think we may solve another illustration just to, get you familiar with the process. So Portia, let's hear it.
Sir, please, I wanted to ask a question. Okay, so for the journal, does it take account of cash and checks, or just the name, like maybe I don't know how to say, but does it say accounts of cash and checks?
Are you referring to
There was
the
a sales.
Are you referring to the general ledger? Because I heard you say general journal.
Please no. The journal. So
The journal.
yes.
Okay, so after this first four, we'll look at the cash book, okay, the petty cash book, and finally the general journal. But just to clear your doubt, the general journal, okay, records all other transactions that cannot be recorded in the other 6 day books. So the question you ask yourself is, what do the other 6 day books record? Okay, and then we have noted that. Let me go to that page for you to appreciate. We noted the functions for each of these. We noted the functions for each of these day books, right? So let me go in there. So the sales day book is used to record the purchase day book is used to record credit purchases. Okay. And the return invoice, return outwards, I think obviously you know what they are used for. Return invoice is for goods returned by customers. Outwards is goods returned to suppliers. And then the cash book. The cash book records all transactions that has cash or check. Okay. And the petty cash book is used to record cash received from the main cashier to be able to settle small expenses. So it normally records cash received from the main cashier. We call that cash impressed. So when we go to that book, you would appreciate this concept. And then it is used to pay for small expenses. Okay, expenses that reasonably you will not get receipts, like probably taking a taxi from your workplace to maybe the bank. Taxi drivers do not issue receipts, right? So we use the petty cash system to take care of those petty small expenses that you cannot get a receipt. You buy a sachet water from a hawker, you don't expect that the person will give you a receipt, right? So those petty expenses, they are catered for in the petty cash book. And then the general journal records all other transactions that cannot be recorded in the other day books. So the question you are asking, I'm sure, is what particular transactions go into this general journal? Don't worry, when we get there, you know. But I can give you a tip just to satisfy your curiosity or your doubt that if you purchase an asset on credit, so let's say bought motor van on credit, okay, you cannot record it in your sales day book. You cannot record it in your purchase day book because it is not goods, it is an asset. The purchase day book is for only purchase of goods. So if you purchase an asset on credit, it cannot be in any of the day books. It cannot be in the cash book because you didn't pay cash or check for the asset. It was on credit. So that will be in where? The general journal. The same way when you sell an asset on credit, it will be in your general journal, because if you sell an asset on credit, it cannot be in the sales day book because an asset is not goods. So at least I've given you 2 transactions that will be recorded in the general journal. Another one is in accounting, you make errors. Okay, you can make a mistake. And when you make a mistake, you need to pass an entry to correct the mistake. You don't go into the books and cancel. That is why when you cancel your work, teachers caution you not to be canceled. In accounting, we don't cancel. Okay, because then it creates the suspicion that the accountant is trying to do some fraud things there. So you pass an entry. Now, if you are passing that entry, you can't record it in any of these daybooks because these 6 daybooks do not record errors or correction of errors. So you can only do that in the general journal. So I've given you 3: sale of asset on credit, purchase of asset on credit, and correction of errors. I think we'll add on when we get to preparing the general journal. So Portia, I want to believe you are a little okay.
I'm okay, sir. Thank you.
Good. So any transaction that you paid cash or received cash, like let's say bought motor van with cash, that will go to the cash book because there's cash or check involved. Okay. Any further questions from my professors? Okay. So in wrapping up, professors, today we looked at the 4 daybooks, right? And doing the postings into the ledgers. Okay, so just remember that these 4 daybooks, sales journal, purchases journal, return invoice, return outwards, they have the same format: date, particulars, details, and the amount. What is important is when you are working on them, take note of the discounts, the trade discounts, as I reiterated the point during the lesson. Okay, and when you are doing the postings, the sales ledger will take care of all the entries in the sales daybook, so you cannot miss it. Sales daybook will go into the sales ledger, the debtors, right? And then return invoice daybook has information about debtors as well, so they will also go there. But the totals should always go to the general ledger. Okay, so professors, if there are no further questions, I think we'll wrap up in today's class. I wanted to give you, well, today is Wednesday. Our next meeting for accounting will be next week. I think I'll give you one question to struggle with. Pardon the word, but I know you not struggle because you can deal with it. Okay. So I'll give you one question where you have to prepare these 4 daybooks and post. And since you already know how to balance account and extract trial balance, maybe I'll add that. Or would that be too much? Oh, it wouldn't be too much because you have the whole of Saturday, Sunday to. Josephine, is that too much?
Yes, please.
Oh, so you don't want the assignment. As for the assignment, I think I should give to you so that you try your hands. Okay. And that being said, please, if you haven't created
Yeah,
your
I want
page,
that time.
okay, good. If you haven't created your page, please do so. Okay. And this second assignment, I beg you. Okay, submit. I'll put the records of those who submitted and those who didn't for the first assignment on the page. So watch out. Except those who are not here with us. Okay. If you don't want that, quickly DM me that say I'm submitting it, so don't add my name. Okay. Okay, Professor. So it's always nice to hear from you, and like I always tell you, take very good care of yourselves. And I'll see you when I see you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Okay, now don't complain about the assignment. Okay. Okay, I'll give you a simple illustration, okay, that you will not stress. Bye bye.